In life, you are one of two things. You are either a winner or you are a loser. And on this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today, we will separate the best from the rest as we will react to who benefited and who got hurt on the Seahawks roster from the 2024 Seahawks draft picks. We'll discuss that coming up in just a matter of moments. Before we do, we're less than 100 subs away from 52K on Seahawks Today. We're not slowing down around here, folks. We're bringing you daily content like no one else is. No one is covering the Seattle Seahawks like we are here on the channel. Subscribe now. Never miss a moment. If the Seahawks make any moves of any sorts, we got you covered on the channel. Subscribe now, youtube.com/SeahawksTV for more Seahawks coverage. Let's begin with the winners list. And Sam Howell at the quarterback position, the biggest winner of the draft for the Seattle Seahawks. We heard the rumblings in Seattle about Michael Penix and Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler. Ultimately, Seattle did not draft a quarterback, and so that means that Geno will be QB1 and Sam Howell will be QB2. And it puts Sam Howell in the catbird seat, right? If something were to happen to Geno Smith, then Sam Howell's going to be right there with the opportunity to compete and potentially take that job away from Geno Smith. Whether Geno struggles, an injury, whatever it may be, Sam Howell will get the chance to prove himself. If you had a young quarterback, like let's just take Penix or Bo Nix as an example, there would be some big pressure on them to get the opportunity as opposed to Howell if something were to happen to Geno. Now Sam Howell knows without a doubt going into camp, he is the guy, if something were to happen to Geno, that he is going to get his chance to prove himself. And he's essentially the Seahawks draft pick this year at the quarterback position. We've heard John Schneider and Mike Macdonald sing his praises, and now he might get the chance to prove himself and potentially take this job away from Geno Smith if that opportunity were to arise. But at least he's not going to be leapfrogged for it by a rookie quarterback. Sam Howell, a big winner. Who was the biggest winner from the Seahawks draft? I think it's Sam Howell. Who do you think it is? Well, in the comment section, let us know who you believe that individual is. Biggest loser for me is Anthony Bradford at the offensive guard spot. Bradford was drafted last year by the Seahawks out of LSU, and it was kind of an up and down year for Anthony Bradford. There was times where when he got his opportunity, he kind of looked like a deer in headlights, right? And so the jury's still out on Anthony Bradford if he's going to be that guy or not. The belief was, going into the draft, that Anthony Bradford was in the driver's seat to be the Seahawks starting right guard. And right now, he still holds that position, but that's the point. For now, he holds that position, folks. Because Christian Haynes, who the Seahawks selected in the third round, has all the potential, all the opportunity to win that job in training camp and ultimately be the Seahawks starting right guard. If I were to put betting odds on this right now, I would think that Haynes is more likely to start week one than Anthony Bradford is at the moment. Obviously, he's going to have to earn it, but for now, Anthony Bradford, it's not looking great for him to potentially be that starter with Christian Haynes right there waiting in the wings to try to get that job. Another winner, Olu Oluwatimi, the Seahawks center, second-year player out of Michigan. We saw him a limited amount in 2023 as Evan Brown was the primary starter. And the coaching staff last year loved Olu Oluwatimi. We heard nothing but positive things about him in the lead-up to the 2023 season. And Evan Brown gone, the idea was that Olu would take over that job. And I know the Seahawks had some discussions with other options at the center position. There was a lot of talk about Jackson Powers-Johnson or drafting another center of sorts. But ultimately, the Seahawks don't do so. They're going to roll with Olu, it would seem. Even with bringing Nick Harris in from the Cleveland Browns, all signs point to that Olu is ahead of Nick Harris on that depth chart, that he's in the driver's seat to get that job. So for the Seahawks not to get another center, to show confidence in Olu, big for him. If all goes according to plan, he should start week one for the Seahawks. Another loser on this list, Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson it has been quite the roller coaster for him in Seattle. We've seen him play great, right? That year in 2022, when he was the starting outside corner, opposite of what we saw from Rick Woolen, I mean, it was a decent season for Mike Jackson, right? And then last offseason, he fell out of good graces with Pete Carroll and the defensive staff, ended up getting benched, losing his job. Tre Brown took over, and then Mike Jackson later on got his job back, and it was all kind of a revolving door of sorts, right? Well, now the Seahawks draft not one, but two corners this year, right? The fantastic Auburn duo. And with Tre Brown still sitting there, it's going to be very competitive. Nothing is a given of who is going to start. And the thing about Mike Jackson, why we have him as the first loser at the cornerback position, there's one more loser to get to later. Here's the difference with him. Look at the primary names you're seeing on your screen. The Rick Woolens, the Devin Witherspoons, Pritchett, Brown, the list goes on, right? James. Those are guys that are all drafted by the Seahawks. Those are guys that John Schneider and company have invested in. There's not the investment in Mike Jackson. They like Mike Jackson. I mean, he's still here after he could have been caught 2 years ago, right? But there's not the long-term investment there of thinking that he is part of the plans for the Seahawks down the road. He might be the easiest to move on from. So that's where it can be a little nervous for Mike Jackson is how much longer is he going to be here? That remains to be seen, but the clock is ticking. Who was the biggest loser from the draft for the Seattle Seahawks? Is it Mike Jackson? Is it Anthony Bradford? Is it somebody else? Weigh in the comment section and let us know what you think. A big winner for the Seahawks was Byron Murphy, their first-round selection out of the University of Texas. Excited to see what he's going to do for many years to come. And now is a great time to get Byron Murphy jerseys on sale at chatsports.com/Murphy. Whether it's the home jersey, the road jersey, men's, women's, all sorts of different selections and colors to choose from. You can get your Byron Murphy jerseys now. These things are hot, folks. Get yours at chatsports.com/Murphy. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. That's chatsports.com/Murphy. Back to the winners list. Abraham Lucas makes the winners list. And there was a lot of talk this offseason about Abraham Lucas coming off a disappointing season where he was very injured, right? Dealt with that lingering knee issue that just simply wouldn't go away. And I have sat here and I've told you before, and I stand by this, that I'm still concerned, very concerned, about Abraham Lucas' status going forward, how that knee is going to hold up. But apparently, the Seahawks have liked what they've seen. They didn't draft another offensive tackle. We haven't heard anything about Abe Lucas having to move to guard. They, quite frankly, didn't sign a big-time tackle. I know they signed George Fant, but George Fant's not starting over Abraham Lucas. By all indications, if everything goes according to plan, Abraham Lucas is still going to be your starting right tackle. I mean, we even talked that there was potential trade rumors out there. He's still here. Hasn't gone away. He's still got his job. Hopefully that knee's okay. But Abraham Lucas right now, a big winner. Also on the losers list, Jiren Reed. Jiren Reed had a good start to 2023, but wasn't the same player that he was in the first 4 weeks. We saw him end up with a decent stat line, 54 tackles, 7 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. But now you bring in Byron Murphy, and Byron Murphy is going to take playing time away from Jarran Reed. Here's what we believe is the starting depth chart right now, where Jarran Reed is back to the bench as a rotational player. Now, maybe he beats out Dre'Mont Jones and moves back to defensive end, whatever it may be. But at the very least, Jarran Reed went from a guaranteed starting spot as the anchor of this defensive line to now having to compete just to even see playing time after having 7 sacks last season. So not great for Jiren Reed with the arrival of Byron Murphy, but in the end, the Seahawks benefit from it because they get the depth they were looking for. Another winner goes Zach Charbonnet. The Seahawks, how many drafts in a row has it been now that they drafted running backs? that finally came to an end this year. Thank goodness it came to an end, by the way. And Zach Charbonnet, who I thought did not get enough touches last year. I would have liked to seen him more involved in that Seahawks offense. Even when Kenneth Walker went down, I thought they should have used Zach Charbonnet more than they should have. Charbonnet knows that his time is here. His time will come. And that he doesn't have anybody waiting in the wings to take carries away from him, that he is the number 2 back for the Seattle Seahawks. That is not changing. Kenny McIntosh isn't going to pass him up. George Holani, the UDFA from Boise State, is not going to pass him up. Zach Charbonnet is in a very good spot to be heavily involved in this Seahawks offense. And we've gone 2 straight years now where Kenneth Walker's had injuries. So Zach Charbonnet, if something happens, is going to be there right ready to go if he gets that chance. Watch out for Zach Charbonnet to have a big sophomore campaign. Another loser on this list, Tre Brown. Similar to the same reasons as Mike Jackson. But think about this with Tre Brown. One thing we've talked about on the channel over the last several weeks is that if there was a defensive player that was most likely to get traded, Tre Brown would probably be that guy because he's shown starting potential. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, right? You know, he missed almost an entire season about a year or two ago. And with that starting potential, if a team is short at a corner spot and needs something, Tre Brown's going to be the guy they call. And with the Seahawks bringing in other guys like Pritchett and whatnot, they might not be so sold on Tre Brown going forward here. I think that there's more sold on him than they are Mike Jackson, but now he becomes probably the most tradable asset you have because he's still relatively young. He's on a cheap contract, and he's got starting experience. Not looking good for Tre Brown there. Should the Seahawks trade Tre Brown? Try to get something out of him while they can right now. What do you think? Y for yes, N for no. Way in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Our final winner on the winners list is Noah Fant at the tight end position. The Seahawks paid Noah Fant a lot of money this past offseason with Colby Parkinson gone, Will Dissly gone. And there was a lot of discussion about the Seahawks potentially drafting a tight end. Brock Bowers did not fall to them like many had hoped. They did not go get Sanders. It wasn't what the Seahawks had hoped for at the tight end position, right? And then you see what they ultimately did. They did end up drafting a tight end, but more of a blocking tight end, right? And then Westover, who they grabbed up from Washington as UDFA, I mean, he's still a UDFA, so there's still, work to be done, right, as far as how realistic his chances are to get on the field. But no question about it, Noah Fant is your number 1 receiving threat. He is the guy for the Seahawks that's going to lead the way at that tight end position. It's his job. He's not going to be having to split like he was before with Parkinson and Dissly. He is, without question, the ringleader of that tight end room. Last one is Dre'Mont Jones. Similar reasons to Jiren Reed, with the arrival of Byron Murphy, kind of makes everything in flux. And Dre'Mont Jones is already coming off a disappointing season where he was paid all that money and really underperformed with only 4.5 sacks last year. His role going to be reduced to some extent, whether he starts or whether he's a rotational piece. Pressure's on Dre'Mont Jones to put it together. It's put up or shut up time after having a down year last year. We need more out of Dre'Mont Jones. Simple as that. He can't play like he did last year if he wants to see significant playing time with Seattle here. So there you have it. That's our winners and losers for the NFL Draft for your Seattle Seahawks. Continuing Seahawks coverage here on the channel throughout the entire offseason. Lock us in. Help us reach our next milestone. Getting so close to 52,000 subscribers. Need your help to get there. And if the Seahawks make any more moves, we're going to bring it to you and react to it here on the channel. Subscribe now for free. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV for daily Seattle Seahawks coverage here on the channel. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.